So, without further ado, allow me to introduce Fred Lybrand, our speaker for today. Fred is the president of Filter Holdings. Previously, he was with Hollingsworth and Vose for 7 to 8 years, and prior to that, with El Marco for 9 years. So he's had about 20-year rich history in filtration and separation activities. So, without further ado, Fred, take it away.
Appreciate the introduction. And I think, is everything sharing? No, not yet.
Not quite.
There we go. Even though you walked me through a very good preparation, Jenna, I still fumbled. Is it up now?
It's all good. Yes, it's up.
Fantastic.
It's up
All
and it
right.
looks great.
So I think, as we look out towards INDA, and it's such a great exhibit, and for those of you who are on, that was how I first got involved with INDA, was joining the filtration committee, which helped organize Filt Expo and then the annual filtration show. Of those 700 exhibitors, I would expect at least 100 will have some kind of bag filter product or equipment for the production of bags. And, it's a very simple, it's a very straightforward product, and one of the oldest and most mature products in the filtration industry. So you'll see a lot of it down there. So the abstract that I submitted originally, again, lots of words there, but I think in my time in the industry, what we've seen is, when I first joined, it was, boy, we really wish everybody understood the value of filtration. And I think that has actually occurred. I think there's widespread understanding and appreciation of the benefits of filtration. I think we see that every day in the continued proliferation of consumer air products. You see it with Tesla when they talk about how they have such great air filtration in their EVs, and you see it in many EV makers in their promotion of good indoor air quality. And a lot of that made possible by regenerative braking and a reduction in dust particulate from brakes. So what this presentation is going to be about is a change that I see coming in the industry, and I think I've heard and talked with many who see it coming as well, is that a big benefit for manufacturers has been the ability to add more surface area to their products. And that's come with increasingly sophisticated manufacturing, increasingly unique form factors, and that era, it's not going to go away. It's going to be a trend that continues in the market going forward, but there's another trend towards simplification. And as we think of kind of forecasting our future, there's two big global trends that we're dealing with. They're going to drive this demand for simpler, easier to produce products like bag filters. And so the first, I'm going to talk through those trends, and then I'm going to talk about the impact we've seen from that on filter makers and on filter design. The first of those trends is changes in trade policy. The second is the increase in use in, it's called AI, right? We hear it all the time, but it's really an increase in computational power. And again, those two trends are going to drive filter components that are going to prioritize ease of use, ease of change out, and production. And those are going to outsell those kind of unique form factors. They're designed for life and for per unit ROI of the manufacturer. So this trend one, global trade patterns, as we were talking before we got on the call, Matt said he was probably getting, 10, 15, maybe 20 calls a day from people asking about tariffs. And it's something definitely that impacts our business as a small manufacturer located in New Jersey in the Northeast US. And for those of you not familiar, the man on the left of your screen is Thomas Friedman. So noted New York Times author, very celebrated. And the man on the right is Stephen Miran. And kind of what we're all living through over the past 2 weeks and since the change in administration here in the US is a shift in the worldview from kind of the perspective of Thomas Friedman to the perspective of Stephen Miran. And whether or not you believe that this is a good thing, if it's a bad thing, no matter your political orientation, no matter where you live in the world, it is something that we are all going to be experiencing and all going to be dealing with. So what I'm going to lay out over the next few slides is probably a bit of a cheat code on what you can expect. So in the Thomas Friedman world, he's known for these two many popular books, but the one on the left, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, published right as I was finishing undergrad and before I'd gone back to get my MBA at Carolina, probably about 750,000 copies sold. And it was the one that first popularized the McDonald's rule for warfare. And that was that two nations that both had McDonald's had never been to war. That rule is obviously now no longer true. He then went on to publish The World is Flat. This one really took off. For me, it came out in my last year of grad school, getting my MBA. Nearly 4 million or over 4 million copies sold, 37 languages. And it basically advanced a worldview that global trade benefits everybody, right? There's, in addition to the economic impact, it helps everybody out. That if you lose an industrial site in your neighborhood, that will be offset by the availability of lower cost goods that will improve your quality of life. And what we've now entered into with kind of a change in the political paradigm here in the US and the move towards the Stephen Mirren worldview is this is what Stephen Mirren's known for writing, and it was published in November of 2024. This is a 40-page PDF. It is out on his website. He's actually very easy to find on YouTube, very easy to follow on Twitter. And the document he's most known for is a user's guide to restructuring the global trading system. So when you think of what's being done by the current political administration in the US, people say, oh, this is chaos. You'll see chaos a lot in the current news media to describe what's going on. And if you've read this document, it is anything but chaos. It is a fairly well crafted plan. As an econ major undergrad, it makes a lot of sense based on how I was trained. And it lays out how tariffs can be used to enact as both a method of foreign policy, but as a tool of domestic policy. And if you go through this document, there's kind of three major points to pay attention to. First is there will be trade realignment, and that'll be through tariffs and then other policy. We're seeing that now. Frankly, I could joke with Matt, I have no idea what the current state of tariffs is in the US. We first put out our first blog post about the potential impact of tariffs, I think in January of this year. But what we see is the kind of previous system where tariffs were static is no longer the case. The second major point is that the goal of this is to increase US export competitiveness. Again, whether or not this is what's achieved with the tariffs, this is the goal of the people implementing this policy. And then third, and what's important to think through, is there will be an integration of trade and security policy. So there will be prioritized trade policies with nations that are considered allies of the US, and there will be a focus on supply chain resilience. And those two last points are important because if you've designed right now a very sophisticated cartridge, right, that uses maybe a unique media, that is pleated with a unique piece of capital equipment, and that is somewhere that is not considered an ally, and that definition of what is an ally could be shifting. Or if your supply chain depends upon raw materials in areas that would be competitors and would harm US export competitiveness, then your unique manufacturing approach is at risk. And these are things that the consumers are going to be aware of, and that is going to drive really shifts in consumer patterns as far as how do they purchase filtration and how do they look at filtration products. So that's the first of two first of kind of two geopolitical changes that we should expect to live through over the next 10 years. Trend two, artificial intelligence. And whether or not it is really artificial, whether or not it really is intelligent, this computational trend is here and it's not going anywhere. So I think there's three really main points to take away from this. First, the claims, like with any new technology, are overconfident. They're too bullish on what they're doing. And yet that's counterbalanced by my second point is there still is a very real impact. The third is that the impacts of AI, and if any of you have played around and asked filtration questions in any of the major AI, be that ChatGPT or the Grok product by Twitter, these will change how consumers buy filters. So I got some funny feedback. We did use AI to make the humorous image of myself at the start of this as we knocked off Back to the Future. And interestingly enough, if you just drop into any of the major platforms, hey, knock off this photo, it'll tell you, hey, can't do that. That's bad. That's a violation of our policy. But you can kind of wordsmith your way towards knocking off and perhaps not infringing upon IP because we're imitating and respecting and modifying the IP. But you can have to finesse your way into it. And the image on the left is kind of the iconic image that people remember from Back to the Future 2. And on the right is I fed it photos of myself and my VP of Finance, who'd also spent a lot of years at H&V, Mike Felchek. And you can see that's not the greatest image on the right. It's not the best impression. You're missing a lot in what's going on here. And I would say this is where you kind of, as you think about the AI hype, you have overconfident claims, but on the other hand, you have still kind of real impact in that it was able to make an image on the right. And this way, the information can be both accurate and inaccurate at the same time. So I wordsmithed with ChatGPT saying, hey, if we're talking about what's the future of bag filters, where were we in 2015? In 2015, were we accurately forecasting where the market would be today, now in 2025? And can we build on that to say, where will we be in 2035? And can we have confidence that the technology can generate an accurate forecast? And you can see here, we really can't, right? This throws back the same kind of gobbledygook response that you get when you do any search on the filtration industry online. For those of you who've been in the industry for a while, you know that if you start looking for information on how big different parts of the filtration industry are, you can find any answer out there. All of us have our own kind of Excel sheets you've built over the years from knowing different manufacturing at different sites. The best sources of information are also often the reports out of the publicly traded companies where you can kind of back into actual production volumes. But looking at 2015, again, here it's forecasting, hey, it's going to be an $80 billion market. But then in 2025, it says it's going to be a $41 billion market. And then in 2035, we're back to a $153 billion market. And I've highlighted here in boxes, it does the same wordsmithing game that it changes its definition from time period to time period. So while we can say, hey, there's great things that could come from artificial intelligence, there's also some really clear and glaring omissions that any of us can encounter when we go out that don't show that much of an improvement to the kind of obfuscation of information that we've all suffered and all lived through the deterioration of search results. Here's a better outlook, again, by a well-known research group, where they're focusing that the bag filter market will grow, from 9 billion, that it could grow by 30% to 2029 for a CAGR of just under 7%. Going back to some of the specific components in the market, for our market, where we're selling into many construction applications and many high temperature applications, we very much depend on needle felts. Again, INDA is a great resource on this technology and this capability in the US. They've got data packages going back decades. There's 3 major manufacturers of aramid needle felts in the US. And again, here, let's trust what the AI throws back to us. And they're forecasting nearly an 8% CAGR and out until 2035. So from a market standpoint, we see things that are both useful and that they're directionally correct. But when you go to drill it down, this technology is still not where we would want it to be. Personally, if this was the information I was getting back from a healthcare provider, I'd be a little worried, right? All these pieces of information where we're promised this is where the technology will be applied, it'll be used by your lawyer. I don't know that I'd trust the legal results if it can't give me something as simple as filtration numbers, which we all know can be pretty well detailed and pretty well known. But what is interesting when you get into the specifics of using AI, like in our market, we design pretty much bespoke filter bags. If you haven't dealt with bag house filters, almost every bag house maker has a unique design. So yes, many of them are 8, 12, or 16 feet long. Many of them might be 4 inch to 8 inches in diameter, but oftentimes people differentiate just slightly to make some unique components of their product. So maybe it's 4 1/8, maybe it's 5 1/4. So our sales team has a lot of quoting tools, old Excel sheets that they use to put together how much area are we going to consume How many square meters of material are we going to consume when we produce product for our customer so that we can quote accurately? And believe it or not, this is a place where AI tool just absolutely nails it. You can enter any detail about a product and it's going to calculate that absolutely correctly. So, hey, we got a bag that's 16 feet long, it's 6.5 inches in diameter. Let's say we're buying like a 13.5 ounce needle felt aramid. It's $13 a square yard. Really, it would actually be about $13 a linear yard. But it comes right back. This is the cost this is how many square feet. This is the raw material cost. So things like that, the product can get very specific, very usable, and much easier than the current internal CRM or sales tools that you're using today. And if you think back to these two big trends and this big overarching point that I think we're going to see, many of you are already seeing, oh, I get it. I see where this is going to go for individual consumers, right? So there's three major takeaways from AI. It's unclear if it will ever live up to the hype. And I'm saying that conservatively because if I'm talking about tech forecasting, and maybe we're looking back on this webinar in the website in 2035, unclear. It's a little bit of a hedge on my part. I'm a skeptic, right? I don't think this is going to go create bespoke music or bespoke movies that are tailored just to what I want to hear. However, AI can be powerful when there is underlying math. And I think that is, for anyone who's played around with it, something that you've got to be seeing as you play with different tools. The third point is where I think this starts to really impact filtration, because we are an industry that relies on jargon and some obscure technical information. And we should expect to find customers that are much more knowledgeable. So I want to include this answer here at the bottom that I asked AI. I've just asked it, right? Ask Grok, ask ChatGPT. I asked it, how is this going to impact the sale of filtration products? And let's just read it out loud. AI will democratize technical knowledge, turning filter sales from a complex, spec-heavy process into a more intuitive, data-driven experience. Whether through guided online tools, smart monitoring, or rep enablement, AI will let customers focus on outcomes, not just part numbers. And what was impressive too here is it picked out, I've been asking one of the AIs I use for help in some product design. So it asked the subsequent question of, hey, Fred, can I help you out with that part? But let's think through that last line. AI will let customers focus on outcomes, not just part numbers. So that's a big deal. Think about the proliferation of SKUs that you find at every filter maker, from the media maker who may have slightly different blends of a wet laid or a needle felt or a membrane, down to, okay, does the cartridge or element maker that they receive, do they have how many different fittings, how many different housings do they have? Customers are going to be able to see right through that going forward. All those SKUs that you've used to get preferential price tiering, that you used in economics, that's known as second degree price discrimination. But those SKUs that you use to shield products are going away. So that kind of, and if you look, there was a book many years ago by the guy who writes the Dilbert comic strip called The Dilbert Future. And he referred to the airlines and other industries as a confuse-opoly, that they kind of deliberately confused information in order to make it easier to extract profits from customers. The day of the filtration confuse-opoly is done, and it is done because of the arrival of artificial intelligence. So here's a photo of one of our customers. This is Laurel Asphalt. It's around the Beltway in Maryland and Washington, D.C. Here's a fuller picture of their plant. We've supplied them for many years. They've got 2 bag houses come to us on a regular basis. And as we think through kind of the implications of those 2 changes we've talked about, right? First, the policy change. Second, in the shift in AI. What does an asphalt plant like this, how do they benefit from using a filter? Well, they have to use a filter because they've got to pass an EPA stack test either every 2 to 3 years. With changes in regulation, many customers now are being forced by municipalities to do that more often, maybe on a monthly, or not on a monthly basis, but maybe on an annual basis. So it's not just the EPA that requires that now, it's also municipalities, it's also the state that they may reside in, sometimes even the counties. So the whole reason that the team at Laurel Asphalt purchases from us is they know that our filter elements are going to pass that stack test. But let's imagine a world where instead of buying a simple bag filter from a manufacturer located in the States, that this plant had to go buy a complex pleated product, maybe with a specialized injection molded fitting that came with a unique media, all of which were made overseas. Well, these two trends that we've just talked about, both AI and both the ripples to the supply chain, would make them very hesitant to buy that kind of product going forward, right? They're not going to want the complex manufacturing because they want to just be able to buy it when they need it. It takes 5 to 10 people to change out their bags. When they go down for change out, they may not have a lot of runway about when they're going to have to do that. So they schedule things at very short notice. So they've got to pass that stack test. They don't want to wait around for a complex part to get there. And two, they've got the ability now with all the data in front of them to tell what's the real benefit of buying that part versus just a conventional part. So here I am with the plant manager, Chris Rumor, who we've supported for years. Chris is a member of the Southeast Asphalt User Producer Group, so he represents the state of Maryland with everybody in that Southeast user group. And here is one of our colleagues here at Filter Holdings. And again, this is the most simple product. It's on the right of your screen, but it's in Ed's left hand. This is the most simple product a filter maker can make, right? It's a simple bag. It is the most cost-effective way to quickly get filter media from a media production into the hands of a filter user. In the middle of your screen in the right hand, and here we'll move it over to an AI-generated version of Ed for those of you who appreciate our use of AI in this. But that's the cage. So these two simple elements can be assembled and brought together at any plant quickly. It does not require overseas supply chains. It does not require exotic manufacturing technologies. It perfectly fits with kind of what we should expect as the new manufacturing paradigm going forward for the next 10 years. And here is a counter to that. Here is one of our most complex products, still very simple, but on our life science side of the house, we bring together raw materials from all over the globe for our life science filter products. And here you see, this is a fluid bed dryer. So this is used for the production of active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, produced at a CDMO, a contract drug maker. And these products, we have a very loyal and robust customer base of about 150 CDMO plants that buy from us every year, bringing in complex parts like this. And this is one where we're really having to think through the supply chain to make sure not only do we have sufficient raw material in hand upstream so we can churn these products out, but to reassure our customers that we'll be ready to go and ship those products. So here again is an example of a simple and standard high volume product. Again, my prediction for everybody on this call is that these are the styles of filter elements where you should expect to see the most growth going forward. We've all got these examples of, hey, so-and-so makes this exotic cartridge. It's really crazy. It has this special thermal properties. It's difficult to weld. It's difficult to bring together. It has to be pleated in this special way with a special blade. But what you should expect going forward is simple products like these type 1 liquid bags and type 2 liquid bags. So whereas we all know that there are markets that have gone through extreme amounts of growth over the past decades, these products have quietly surged in popularity because they can be changed out quickly. They're simple. Also, with the use of recyclable material, they can be there can be a green impact to what you see in the market. And I want to take a little detour, and this is something I hit on at a talk at AFS, but everyone's familiar with this product on the right. So this is a conventional membrane cartridge filter. Maybe not everybody is familiar with kind of this exotic peak and valley that you see on the left. And it's all the filter makers, all the cartridge makers have their own versions of this. If it's the beta pleat, the M pleat, the Sardo pleat, but it's a very unique and sophisticated way to pack more surface area. So you go from that conventional 0.6 to 0.65 square meters per element to some of them now can have over 1, maybe 1.1 square meters per element, all to improve the permeability, all to reduce pressure drop, all to improve flow. But something that I was shocked to learn coming to this business, and I've now been with Filter Holdings just about 6 months, there are a huge number of accounts who simply hate pleats. There are many applications where those little elements down there are kind of what accumulate funk. They accumulate crud, they get dirty, they don't have sufficient flow, and that kind of dust cake that builds up there, well, if you're at a food or a beverage plant, that is where your spoiling occurs. We've worked with a number of chocolate makers and a number of cheese makers for food and beverage products, and they will not work with pleated products because the change-out frequency is too high. So while I think everyone has been kind of astonished with the growth rate in this market and have great and valid forecasts for its growth in the future, it is a product that is single use. Like, that's the other defining characteristic of these membrane filter products is they are used and they are thrown out. They cannot be washed, they cannot be cleaned. And because they're making very high value products, they can be thrown out quickly. But that kind of accumulation and spoilage there are a surprising number of high value filter applications that prefer to use bags rather than membrane cartridges and rather than conventional liquid cartridges because they're better for the feedstock. So I'll say it one more time. Many customers, many accounts prefer to work with bags rather than pleated elements because the pleats accumulate product and that product then creates spoilage, so they can't use it for their high value applications. So we'll wrap things up with one final slide and move to questions from the group. Again, complexity creates risk. The supply chain risk will drive customers to purchase simpler products. Again, we're kind of living through it. It's funny trying to interpret from the news cycle what is exactly going on as far as tariffs and global trade policy today. But we all know it from our customers and suppliers that these changes are consuming a ton of time internally. Second is that the trialability of simple form factors and high changeouts will reduce the bias towards high surface area components. So I'll wrap it up with kind of two final predictions, and then this last point. Customers will prefer simpler products. They do already, right? If you could go to the auto store and get a simple one-size-fits-all air filter for your car, that is what you would prefer to buy. Second is that with that, unstructured filter products will grow faster than pleated products. So for those of us as manufacturers, everyone who's going to be at INDA in Miami in 2 weeks, if you prioritize ease of use, if you prioritize change out and production, that's going to make more money than designing for life and designing for high per unit ROI and customer lock-in. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I'll give you a couple moments to catch your breath. We do have a number of questions. Please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. So the first question is, do you think there's a way to incorporate, there's a lot of questions about AI, by the way. It definitely got people's attention. Do you think there's a way to incorporate AI into filtration systems to guide users towards appropriate cleaning and filtration or cleaning and replacement frequency of filter media?
Absolutely, I do. And actually, before I joined H&V, but after I'd left Almarco, I worked, and this is 9 years ago, I worked with a consulting group that was on the software side. And if you think about it, the little QR code that you could scan with your phone, to me, would be a great place where you could have that readily accessible. And then also, we definitely see the cost of sensors has decreased dramatically. So I would expect that to be an area where there are a lot of simple ways. And I don't think these are the kinds of things that filter companies should go out and try and pioneer with an internal development team. If you just go look and see what's available in the market, there's plenty of companies that all they do commercially is show you how to put a QR code on your product. Think of all the people, like we're all going to see Matt down in Miami at the trade show. How many people are going to have QR codes on their business card? But that's a great place to have information about change out frequency. I just think as easy as it's going to be to have that QR code around change out frequency and sensor data that shows how to manage the product, it's going to be real easy for your competition to say, hey, next time buy a simpler filter that you can go change out and make it easier. So as much as that's an opportunity to create lock-in, look at the kind of furor that was created in the market with the Chinese AI company a couple of weeks ago. It's not just an opportunity for you to create lock-in. That AI is going to frankly tell them, well, your lifetime cost has been X, and if you'd purchased this other element, it would have been 70% X.
Excellent example. I think that's very true. And I think the next question is also about AI. It's kind of interesting because we've seen AI design products. When given the CTQs for various products out there, they've had AI design them, and sometimes they come up with these wildly, albeit perhaps cheaper or in some way better, but utterly impractical designs of AI that gets to the same technical endpoint. So the question is how do you think AI can assist in step change improvements in the design of filter media and filters?
Well, I might question, can it? Can it really do that? Is that really what you would want? I have seen some interesting AI businesses on experimentation and on product development where there are plenty of products that are available that will help an R&D team be more quantitative and be more thorough in how they do design of experiment. So their DOE capabilities can be much more robust with the help of AI. So you could shorten your design cycles for new product development. I think that would be one area where you could see an improvement. And I not to be a pessimist, but I think there's so much innovation out there right now in the supply chain that people aren't taking advantage of. It's very difficult to have like this. Does anybody really have the one big book of this is all the filter media, right? We know that there's at the big publicly traded companies and some of the privately held companies, they've got great media libraries going back over decades. And I'd done some work in the past with some apparel makers where you would go into these facilities that were the size of a basketball court, and it had all these jackets on it like a dry cleaner, and they'd cut holes out of it over the years. And there's 2 or 3 of those facilities like that in the filtration industry. I think it's less about pioneering the new media. I don't think that's where AI will be disruptive for filtration. Where AI will be disruptive for filtration will be giving you an exhaustive survey of the existing landscape and letting you know right now, today, you shouldn't be developing this thing for 5 years from now. You should go buy this product that's already available, and it exists in a cheaper form factor. And by the way, the element may not fit your current housing, but we'll 3D print a housing for you that's an adapter, and then that will really lower the cost of operations. It's the combination of AI with some other components like 3D printing, like other things that I think will let more product that is in the market and already developed today get adopted more quickly.
I think that's a great answer. And I think you hit on something I've seen also elsewhere where people said, I don't need AI to necessarily create the answer for me. I need AI to help me find the answer because the answer is already out there somewhere, but sometimes you're just not going to be able to peel it back via your normal search mechanisms and networking. So this is somewhat similar to the earlier question is how might machine learning or sensor data be used to optimize design or predict fouling in the future? I think the predict fouling could be interesting given some of the different applications that are going on.
Yeah, and you saw this a lot. So there's several big conferences on the life sciences side that are all about AI, machine learning, and predictive modeling of their feedstock. I mean, here you've got to look towards the more expensive, more lucrative filtration applications to really understand. They're the ones who have the money to do the modeling. You see that in a lot of oil and gas applications where they've really modeled, this is the kind of crude oil that I'm bringing in. This is my refining process. This is how I can eke out a few percentage points of yield. So, I mean, there's definitely, I would say that those applications are actually already here. They are buried within other industries that are already kind of expert craftsmen and users of filters. So if you go to a bioprocess or a pharma trade show, you're going to find, frankly, whole shows dedicated to computationally, how do I model the next generation of therapeutics or monoclonal antibodies? That's out there. If you go to an oil and gas show, you're going to find whole seminars and sessions on this is how we're improving yields at the refinery level. And the filters and the filtration process is a big part of that already.
Great. So I think we've got one more AI question here. This one apparently is a joking, not joking. Can AI untangle the tariff situation or at least bracket the best and worst case scenarios?
I think it will. Frankly, I can't keep up with, this is, if you think of the hypothetical army of monkeys, will they typing forever? Will they eventually create Shakespeare? Like, well, if we have an army of monkeys in Washington, D.C., will they ultimately create a coherent tariff policy? Maybe they will. But what I would say is that I'm not going to read all of their pages of information. It probably will come from AI. Frankly, if you go out and look at the major kind of mainstream corporate media right now, what you'll find doesn't really help you understand the situation. The analysis is very surface level, and you can probably more accurately find, when the formal tariff documents do come out. If anybody's looked at, people have taken these 1,000-page bills that get published at the federal level here in the States and fed it into an AI and said, give me the parts that matter to me. And they get very coherent answers out. We had a new life science customer the other day who was asking questions. We were having to source a new fabric for them that was like a 5-micron product, and they were concerned about its suitability. We fed portions of 21 CFR into it by PDF. You have to go check the work, obviously. You can't just believe it. But yeah, I appreciate that the question was probably asked in jest, but you can't trust the initial feedback it gives you. But it's almost like having your own personal search engine to know where to go out and read next.
I think it's a great point. And one discussion I had with someone was like, yeah, okay, tariffs are going to happen. And we see the ones that are right up in our face. That's obvious to our industry. But peeling back the layers and understanding all the moving parts of the different piece that affected something far down your value chain and how that's going to impact you. That's probably a very good example where AI can help say, hey, you're going to have some pressure here. You're going to have some opportunity there. And whoever gets those answers first is going to be able to react to those and have a competitive edge.
That's a great point, Matt.
So I think I'm looking at this correctly. I think all the other questions are going to be actually about bag filters in particular.
Oh,
so I think they've exhausted the AI well. There might be a few more later, but someone said, I'm familiar with bag filters for industrial exhaust applications. Where or how is there an opportunity for bag filters for inlet air for office, commercial? I assume this is inlet air for IAQ purposes.
I don't know that there is one right now. I don't know that anybody's using them there. But my prediction here is, again, I've got the personal bias towards bag filters, is that those kind of common properties that you see of simpler filter designs and on the and office and residential side, maybe it's just a bias in the future towards simpler 24 by 24 by 2 panels, or more standardization around common V-bank designs. I think on the office side, the industry kind of already has set on conventional designs, and what you'll see is innovation within the existing housings. You won't continue to see more housing styles come to market.
Okay.
But that's a good question.
In a scenario where different types of filtration systems can be used, and I think this may have gotten to this may have been inspired by the pleated versus the bag approach. But where different styles of filtrations can be used, what's the big selling point for choosing a bag over other systems? I know you kind of touched upon this in your closing, but let's reiterate that.
It's really about simplicity. It's really about where there's a high value media. Oftentimes, like in our world, it's media that will not pleat well, but it is very valuable or is needed for that area. It is media where you've got a thermal requirement, and it's area also applications where you're either collecting dust, right? So you're collecting something that you don't want to go through, or you're filtering something that's valuable on the life science side for our products, right? They're making APIs that are thousands of dollars per unit of mass. So they want to go with something simple and direct that is easy to back pulse, and you will not accumulate or you won't impact the back pulsing in the crevices and in the peaks and the valleys of the pleat.
Makes sense. Just gonna jump ahead here because we were talking the pleat just now. Is the ROI from pleated filters still compelling in some specific segments, or is this a slowdown in growth consistent across the board?
I am throwing out a hypothetical here over the next 10 years. I predict that if somebody's locked into a generic pleat design, they're going to still want to stay with that pleat. They're going to still want the same life. But if you go back a couple, so these basic type 1 and type 2 bags, so we sell to kind of everybody in our target market. So we'll sell to distributors, we'll sell to OEMs, so the people designing hardware that takes these bags, and then we'll sell to end users. Over this company's history, it had a number of accounts that had moved towards pleated form factors. We have seen many of them move back towards very standard and simple liquid filter bags like what you see here, really because it's ease of use.
Okay, very good. So the other aspect is you mentioned the reuse and cleaning of the bags. So the question was, given the reuse of aspect of bag filters, do you all have LCA supported sustainability stories around this? And I'll add something before you answer that, is we're starting to get inquiries on the filtration space. Filter media has always been a bit between the short-term and the long-term non-woven products, the way we categorize things. And pretty much across the board on all the short life products, we're hearing about the sustainability, reduce of consumption, extension of life, whatever the case may be. And then, of course, all the end of life, you think of all the medical apparel in particular and the disposable hygiene. It's like, where does this stuff go when it's done? And people have concerns. And our prediction is, and we're starting to hear some of these inquiries, is that we're going to see this on filter media. What do we do with filter media after it's been used? How do we extend the life? So this is gaining some momentum. I'd say it's still on the front end of it, but if you have sustainability stories with, I guess, LCA supported data, someone would love to hear about them.
We don't have those up on our website right now. Again, this business has been around since 1945, so a lot of our products have been grandfathered in decade after decade. I know that on the life science side, one of the reasons that customers will be attracted to those style bags is they are a part of pharma manufacturing where there are approved washing cycles. But then when you look at that life cycle assessment, you kind of look at, well, gosh, what does the runoff from the soap? What are the detergents? How is the wastewater for that processed? So it's always, that life cycle assessment is always such a challenge to do. It's a good question. I don't have the answer for you out on our website right now.
I'm going to guess that to some extent it's going to follow some of the trend of the reusable cloth diapers versus the disposable non-woven plastic containing diapers. And I think we're going to see some of those things because you're right. It's not simply just materials. It's what's being used on all the cleaning, the reuse, to reinstall, etc.
Yeah, and you look at basic things like the energy cost is almost never accurate. And again, let's go back to let's go back to the original assessment. Is your life cycle assessment going to survive the tariff impact? Right? Like look at the
This is
global
true.
volatility in energy prices right now. Like if you're getting monofilament yarn from Italy versus Germany versus somewhere in Southeast Asia, like your energy costs in that assessment are now dramatically different from region to region.
That's very quite true. All right. So still somewhat related to this, in those high value applications prone to fouling or spoilage, what specific features make pleat-free filters more effective and reliable? Again, one you kind of touched upon, but let's dive a little deeper.
So it's the fact that they're not accumulating components. There's not kind of the crevices, the peaks and the valleys are where you're more likely to accumulate product. And it's that product that is going to be where you start to see microbial growth, again, depending on the food or the feedstock, or you're going to see larger particulate accumulate, which then breaks off and then impacts the product. But really what drives people more than anything else is they might use 20 of those bags on the left instead of one cartridge, and I'm just going to change it out every shift. And so their thought process is, I'm never even going to risk accumulation. I'm going to have a change out cycle that is driven by weekly activity. I'm not trying to stretch every last dollar out of this type of element. I'm going to go to a simpler element, and I'm just going to insist from a runtime basis that the operator change it out every time the machine goes down for preventative maintenance.
All right. Tying to the maintenance aspect of it, one of the other questions was, how are manufacturers adapting their maintenance practices based upon these evolving design preferences?
I think it goes into how do they choose their hardware. We've definitely heard, definitely on the industrial bag house side, again, there's been a major move, and entire billion-dollar filter businesses have grown based on the move towards pleated bag elements. But you'll see customers definitely, as they're coming to buy those products now, they have a lot more questions about the robustness of the supply chain. Hey, okay, I get a cheap 2 cargo container loads from Asia when I buy for the first initial install. Do you have, if you're based in the States or Western Europe, is there a closer source of supply that I can rely on in the future? Or are you willing to commit to me pricing right now?
Very good. And I will certainly say, when you're putting equipment in, understanding the maintenance needs as part of the total cost of implementation is critical. And certainly, I've had some PTSD moments about some poorly designed things that were incredibly difficult to maintain. I think anyone that's like worked in an engine of a car has had some moments, let's just call them that, where they said, "Why would you put that there?" Which made it problematic when you can't get that fourth bolt out of something. So I think just being cognizant of the maintenance aspect in, because you do have to plan for it, and that is going to be part of your total cost down the road for whether it's manpower or other things. So I think coming to the final question, this is maybe the $64,000 question. Will you be at Filt Expo?
Wouldn't miss it for the world, Matt.
See, that is the $64,000 answer. We like that one. So anyways, if whoever put that one in, you can grab Fred. His email was up in one of the earlier responses, or you can contact him directly, set up a meeting with him. And I will say, Fred, thank you very much. I have to say,